because I don't bring anything off at home. Are we on?
Hey, how are you?
It's counting down now. 46, 45, 44.
It's a long countdown.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, last
I
time
think we're
Josie
on.
came in a little late, so maybe she's...
I think we're on.
Okay.
Sounds like we're on.
All right, I'm gonna call this meeting to order. The first thing we have to do is approve the minutes from last time.
I move to approve.
I wasn't here, so I'm going to be abstaining.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All right. We vote? Yeah. All for approving that? Aye. All right. And then the staff report.
All right, staff reports in the packet. Some highlights I'd like to cover. The fall gravel grinder was held September 28th. We had 158 registered for the race, which ended up being a great day weather-wise. It was a little touch and go there. The forecast called for a lot of rain, but we had a great time. Jug fair was going on, even though the chamber ended up canceling the barbecue contest. So it was a great day. Then the next day, Sunday, we had the 16th annual dam run. We had 90 runners registered for that, and the weather was perfect. Honestly, couldn't have had a better day for that. Yeah, so it was a good deal. Saturday, we're helping with the haunted campground at Smithville campground. That's a community event that's gotten bigger and bigger every year, so that should be a good time. Folks are invited to come out, and it's a free event. Trail grant update, the state has pushed back the workshop, the process of approving those grants. The historic preservation review is complete. We're waiting on the environmental review. We were hoping to have the public input for that trail at this meeting, but because the state pushed that date back for everybody, that's not going to happen. We will definitely keep you guys in the loop on when that public meeting is going to be so you can attend and offer your input on the plan. So that'll be something exciting, hopefully, here this fall that gets it underway.
Input on the plan, will there be a plan to look at beforehand, or will this be preliminary?
Yeah, there'll be it's not a full set of drawings by any means, but it's more or less a course of where the trail goes.
Will it be kind of like what we did for Heritage Park? Come and look.
I would say more formal since engineers are involved.
But it'll be there'll be stuff to see. And
there will be visual aids. Cool. I think, yes. Right. So staff has met with the engineers and offered some feedback. Again, we'll make sure to include this board on any date, time, and when that's going to be.
Cool.
Would have been nice if it would have been, kind of fell in with this meeting. It just didn't happen.
I have a question, if I can back up one.
Yeah.
What time is the haunted campground?
Haunted campground's 4 to 7.
Okay.
Yep.
And back to that, are they going to have the shuttles like they have?
They will have the shuttles, yeah. Grace Community Church and Family Worship Center will be running shuttles again.
So you can park there?
You park at the soccer fields or baseball fields and then shuttle down in the buses.
Oh,
Yeah,
gotcha.
safety first.
Nice.
It really is. Yeah, are you guys going again this year?
We're going to be in Princeton.
Oh, that's too
We may
bad.
try to come.
Yeah.
That's really
Are you
nice.
on?
That's
Good.
really nice.
That's cool. So, yeah, I think people are going to start setting up about 1 o'clock, but campground's going to be packed. So we've really had good response, and hopefully the weather cooperates.
Great.
But that should be a good deal. Dog park update status is the same as it was at the last meeting. Absolutely the same as the last meeting. Clay County has submitted a plan for the dog park to the Corps of Engineers. The city stands ready to finish and install the water line and meter per the agreement between the Board of Aldermen and Clay County Commission. Okay? Thank you.
And then the strategic plan.
Okay, the strategic plan review, there was a reconvene on September 18th at Smithville High School. After that, focus groups broke out, and one of those was the strategic pillar of the enhanced recreation and connectivity at the library on September 20th. I know, Jim, you were there. Were you at the Parks? Yeah, it was an excellent session. We laid a lot out on the map, so we'll see what makes it out of that. The public unveiling of the strategic plan is Saturday, November 9th from 10 to noon at the high school at the Performing Arts Center. Definitely something you're going to want to be at, since connectivity and recreation is something that keeps coming up.
Where is that?
That's at the Performing Arts Center, which is basically, it's the west end of the high school.
Okay.
There's a separate set of doors there.
Got it. Thank you.
November 9th.
On November 9th, 10 to
I will be
noon.
able to attend.
What's that?
I will not be able to.
Okay. Alrighty, so that is the update there.
I'm adding my calendar.
The exciting update. So it's been fun. That recreation and connectivity
You said it's.
focus group was pretty interesting.
It was-
That
it was a lot of fun.
It really was. Everybody was very involved in that, and
Yeah.
I think there was some really good discussion.
So I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
And I think what was really interesting, and that hit a little bit there too, but just how all three groups, and by the time you got it done, it was like going back to our first meeting, and we were kind of like that oasis. So it kind of like from 92 north was more like where the oasis was going to be, and south is more where we're looking for more of the industrial growth and businesses and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to see the takeaway.
All reports were our session was the most fun. So, of course it was. So there's that.
It was, I think that had the most excitement.
Okay, we're good.
Great, but
That's a good place to be. That's all I have on that.
All right. And then the 2020 budget items?
2020 budget items, basically we'll just recap. The included a basketball court at Heritage Park and a parking lot by the new playground equipment. The engineering authorization for both of those projects is expected to be on the Board of Aldermen agenda in December. From there, we'll create plans and bid those plans. We're anticipating a bid award for each one in early spring. It will probably be bid together, as in it's all asphalt work. We'll see what the engineers say about that. One aspect for this committee is to decide where do we think a basketball court should be located at Heritage Park. I know when we were talking about putting this in the packet, we talked about some different locations. Matt and I laid out some of those locations. One of them was out by the road there, kind of by the bandstand. Didn't know what the feedback was as far as where those would go. And, some other folks talked about what if we ended up putting a third ball field out here on Heritage. We didn't want to mess any of that up down the road.
Right.
And then like a parking lot expansion is included on the CIP as well. So that's, they can kind of keep it out of that way.
I was gonna ask, the old playground equipment that's there, what'll eventually happen to that?
I imagine at some point that'll be removed. Again, one of these
What
locations,
happens to
obviously,
it when it's removed?
it depends.
If it's usable.
From a liability aspect, the safest thing is to recycle it and get rid of it so that your name isn't permanently attached to it.
Gotcha.
That's what you learn in playground safety class, is that
Okay.
you can try and resell it, but that will always come back to you once you've owned it.
Is there a difference between liability of reselling and donating it?
I don't know. That'd be something for the attorneys to decide.
Okay. Because I see where the parking lot goes over where the swings are. And I thought, actually, was a way previous meeting, that one of the things we had talked about was the swings could be moved, possibly.
And that parking lot's a few years down the road.
Yes. I've been out at that playground a couple of times, which, by the way, both of them are highly trafficked right now. The weather's been beautiful, and I went out there 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, and it's way trafficked. It's really nice. It's gonna be great parking lot up there. And it was beautiful, the bench was set, but you couldn't get on the concrete yet because it was still wet.
Right.
So, but it's gonna be nice up there once everything's taken care of. But one of the things was, like, the playground equipment that's down there, it's older, but it's still very usable. And so that was just a thought that I had.
Everything's gonna come back to safety, the safety of that
Yeah,
equipment.
I
In fact, we had to
understand.
replace a portion of that slide as that new equipment was going up.
Yeah,
And a lot of those, that's a 1997 playground there. It's lived its useful life.
okay.
But again, we don't have to decide that today.
Yeah, I know, I was just wondering, it was just a
That's-
thought that I had while I was there.
Yeah.
Okay, personally, I like the location out here in the front, partially because I know a lot of people are very emotionally attached to the bandstand. And I feel like it would get more use being there next to a basketball court. Place for kids to sit while the rest of them play, or just a covered area to get in and out from under out of the sun. And it's out of the way of any future ball field.
I'm also considering the one in the front because parents could drive by and be like, where's my kid?
Yep.
Oh, there he
There it
is.
is. Yeah, I like that.
I thought that one, and my second would be the one that's closer to the playground. Because my thought was if you were to do a ball field there later, you'd probably
mighty
have
close, wouldn't
stands and
You would,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
Something Matt and I wrestle with on this one would be using that when someone's using the ball field, especially at like an adult softball scenario.
Oh, a ball coming out?
Right. And we don't have in the budget any fencing around this.
Around the court.
Around the court.
Okay.
And so those are some things, again, we put it on here because we discussed that location at one point, and then it's one of those
I mean,
things
the
to
other two
where.
though are basically, I mean, a foul ball could legitimately go
Sure.
off the other direction. It's not as likely,
Not
but
that
it's still
far.
possible.
No.
I know left
that
field, you know.
Does that,
And this
does that
is-
be moved up this way further?
Yeah, we could. We were just trying to kind of get in between the existing trees, is what we did when we stepped it off. Sure.
The basketball court will not have fencing around it.
Is there, I'm sorry,
I was just considering like if a basketball goes on the street.
that was my question. Is there-
It's lower in there, so that is less of an issue. The bigger problem is gonna be someone's involved in a game or something on the basketball court, and here comes a adult softball flying over the fence.
yeah.
I mean, we limit home runs and do what we can in the rules for that, but that's still could potentially be an issue.
I think it would be less of an issue here than it would be on, well, I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, the third field is just a T-ball field, you're not gonna see anyone over age
here.
8 playing on that.
Yeah.
It's a really small infield, especially when you look at the other two. But
So is there room, if you look at the one that's over by, this is the playground equipment, right? Is there room to is there room that could be flexible with if it was moved in just a little closer to the T-ball field, or would that be too close?
we could, I think there's probably some room there to push it back that way a little bit. We kicked around maybe turning it the other way as well, but then I'd hate to get too close to where that parking lot's gonna be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an unknown. I mean, that's something to be engineered to the next couple of years of the CIP.
Well, then you're running the same thing here with the parking lot.
That's true, yeah.
When you mentioned not getting too close there, that one's right there.
Right, and again, this we we laid it out and then went out and looked at the site and tweaked it just to kind of miss some of the trees that are there. They've been there as long as the playground, they're just starting to get to be decent size, and so we hate to start over. Obviously, we can add trees as well. So that's something to kind of keep in
Do you
mind.
know what the distance is to the fence from batter's area there? I mean, is it a long home run to
No,
go over that
it's
fence
not.
or not?
It's
Okay.
not for the
They're pretty short
Okay.
fields.
Okay.
That's why we have to put those home run rules in.
Yeah.
And it's a short fence, and, you wouldn't want to, I mean, we play 13U ball on there, and that's not a problem, but I don't think you'd play 17 or 18.
Do you think there would be an opportunity in the budget to just put a section of raised fence in front of us, on that side of the
Potentially.
court?
Even if not fence, but like netting, like,
Yeah.
almost like foul ball netting.
I think that's something we
Would that be,
definitely add into the
would that be
bid.
a cheaper option than like chain link?
It could be cheaper, I don't know if it would hold.
From a
Yeah.
maintenance
Yeah.
perspective, in the long run, it may not be
Right.
cheaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something we could definitely add in as an alternate on the bid.
All right.
When is that going to be really up for decision? I mean, when does a decision need to be made on that kind of?
On the
court
on the
location.
location, I'd like to have that coming out of this.
Okay.
If possible.
I'm still not opposed to the one out by Main Street. I feel like if there's a game going on and your kid's out there, like, or if you're out there, then for the most part, like, if a ball heads out that direction, someone's gonna holler, and I know it's, to me, like, if we put another ball field out here, these are gonna be a liability regardless. Like, any place we put it could be a liability for a ball, but,
There is a ditch in between the road and the proposed court out front.
So that's going to be.
yeah, there's kind of like so I'm not worried about it going in the street from there.
What is this what is this building?
That's the bandstand.
That's the little bandstand.
Still bandstand from when the American Legion building was
Yeah.
right there in the parking lot, kind of.
And with that one, there's the more use.
Right, it's definitely more visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that might be the best location of the three.
I think, like I said, with that bandstand, I know a lot of people are attached to it. I do think it would get more use. I also feel like with the baseball or the basketball field or court being out front, there's less chance for riffraff, kind of, just because it is so visible. You know,
Maybe less opportunity for vandalism. and
You think the
different
trail's
things.
gonna come back through here?
Right.
Okay.
We're worried about that when we do the.
Well, I just wanted to
parking.
make sure that that's probably where that's gonna be and not
It's
get
hard to say.
involved with
It's
this
hard to
here
say,
would be the other
yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
But there's still probably plenty of room there, even if
I think there
it
is.
come down along here.
yeah, the trail that, the grant, how far into Heritage is that gonna go? Or is it gonna be on the?
It'll just
other
go
side?
along, it'll be just on the, right along the road there,
Okay.
just along Main Street. It'll be out in the right of way.
I mean, this is obviously open for the discussion. Does anyone
There
have
is-
anything else?
Yeah, and then I think there is a branch that connects to this sidewalk up on the top by the new parking lot would go. It kind of curves around there and hooks into that as well. That was on the plan that I saw.
And at this point, it may not be as wide. This
Right,
down
it may be,
here,
I think it's
and then
only
it will
8
get
feet.
wider as it goes
Yeah.
on out, possibly.
So is that how the trail's gonna go? Is it's gonna actually go into Heritage and then back out?
No, it just connects this sidewalk at the top of the hill that kind of just stops there. That hooks out and comes along, probably by where that new parking lot's gonna be.
So it'd just be like a loop, kind of?
More or less, yeah. It'll be another point of connection to the parking sides along the front here.
Okay.
Because it goes, the Main Street Trail goes to commercial at this point. And more of those details are being worked out.
Do you have a raccoon?
I don't know. Possibly. So we have a consensus, we like the one out by the road.
I think so.
Feel good? Okay. Let's go ahead and make a motion to vote on it just for fun.
Anybody's welcome.
I'll make a motion to go with the proposed location closest to East Main Street for the new basketball court.
We'll need a second.
I'll second the motion.
All four? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else for that, Dave?
That's all for that, yeah.
All right, the Second Creek Road Bridge.
Okay, last year, the bridge over Second Creek Road was replaced, cities retained ownership of the old bridge. Kind of want this group to think about maybe where could we utilize that bridge in our park system? What maybe are some challenges with that?
About, Smith's Fork out, like on the, going to be mountain bike trails.
How long is the bridge?
I'm not sure.
How difficult, do you mean like spanning over the spillway?
Well, I'm not very familiar with that area. I know there are some ravines out there, but I don't have any idea of the measurements or, you know, it would be kind of cool to add to that trail system.
So I've done most of that trail, and the only ravine kind of area that I know of for sure is, it's a space for like extra flooding. Do you know what I'm talking about, Brett? It like goes out towards the road.
Yeah,
You go
there's the
around
emergency
river.
spillway there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been, I'm sorry, discussion at some point in time in the past of making some connection across the Little Platte from like the housing?
Like housing to Heritage
In the
Park.
Heritage
Yeah,
Park.
that's something.
And in the visioning, we discussed the idea of maybe looking at the Little Platte area and maybe doing kind of building it as kind of a river walk area, and I'm wondering if it wouldn't possibly come in handy. Is it in two pieces now? It
Yes.
looks like it's kind of bent down in the middle.
Yeah,
Is that how
I think it's in two pieces. I guess that's what they did to remove it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's what it seems like. Since it would be used for pedestrian, I'm assuming, or you're not talking about any kind of vehicle traffic other than bikes and,
I don't think so. We'd just be,
Yeah.
I wouldn't either.
yeah, I think it's definitely worth just looking at the actual where could it be used? Because it's a great opportunity. Yeah, it's saving a lot of money.
Yeah.
I thought even with it being cut in half, could you get two out of it?
That's what I was thinking.
You know, you'd have to fabricate another side of some kind, but that'd still be twice the bang for our buck.
What I was looking at, because you don't need it that wide.
I like the idea of using it out of Smith's Ford, the space, I know because when you're working with like the Army Corps of Engineers, it's like a whole extra thing. If we were to do that over the spillway, I'm sure that with it being the spillway, there would be even more like.
I don't think we'd get too close to spillway, but I do think it potentially could be an option
No,
farther down the river.
I just mean like down the river. But there's like, when you go back into Lake Remote, like where the parking lot is along the river, there's like a little meadow back there, which also connects up to where the Lake Remote is. And it would be nice to have a little bridge that goes back there from like the camping area, or even back close to where like the Boy Scout camping area is.
Sure.
That could really expand that area and kind of make the loop trail and get a lot more mileage, especially, because I know when we went out and looked and you were saying, I'm not sure where the trail's going to come down into Smith Fork, and it could really tie in to that whole system.
Yeah.
But I do think you could get, because it's got to be at least 16 feet wide. And
Right.
so you're going to get opportunity for two.
It'd be nice to get a couple crossings over
Bridges
the
out,
river.
right.
So
Yeah.
perhaps maybe one at
Like a
Heritage and one out at
down
Smith Fork.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that'd be really cool. And I know that, I know that there's also a piece of property back there that we've talked about a couple of times where you can't dig down so far because it's like an archaeological site. Where is that?
That's down along the river.
Is it like-
in the old crop field we used to,
Is it like this side of the Boy
it's
Scouts?
most,
But it's back behind the
just
Scouts?
figure it's most of Smith Fork Park.
Anything that's not being used, that's where it is.
So
Okay.
that's one of the challenges then.
That could be a challenge,
You
yeah.
might have to get some sort of waiver or some sort,
I think something else you need to think about, and maybe down the road, we talked at last council meeting, we're really looking and asked staff to go ahead and look forwards to maybe annexing Smithville, of going down that road. So that might open up some more feasibility for us, prospects down the road.
I was back there the other day, and one of the thoughts that I had was if the trail system is gonna go through there, and it's already being used for like our Boy Scouts and that kind of thing, there's a lot of green space back there that's just not being used, and I assumed that was the area where we're not supposed to dig down too far. And so my thought was, I know that, I talked with the mayor briefly, and his understanding was, I thought maybe there was a possibility of us to get a grant for like Missouri wildflower kind of thing, but he said from what he understood, like you had to like ground kill everything and then you plant what they want you to plant. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't do that on our own, just wildflower, butterfly garden type things, with a trail going through that, back over the little Platte, back into Lake Remote. I think that would be a really, really nice,
Because I'm doing that.
that'd be a great area for that kind of thing.
right here
So
at
I
the
didn't
end
go over that.
of the, I think right in here at the end of this, it just would make such a nice completion. And then you really are pretty close to the campground, so of course there's the field, but.
Well, that would just make the campgrounds even more of a draw,
Then you gotta
because
walk
like you're
right out of the
walking trail,
campground.
hopefully we'll have a dog park across the road.
Oh, that's right.
Like, that could be a great destination spot, and I think it would be fantastic, but it's just all what's feasible. Obviously, there's budgetary stuff.
Money,
Yeah, money's a big
that's
deal.
an obstacle.
Because you're gonna have to dig the pylons to support it, the ground, the
Yeah,
ground
for this.
structure to support it.
Yeah, I think there's a way to do that within the parameters of the lease.
Do we still have to go through?
So when you look there,
Go ahead.
I'm interrupting, I'm sorry.
And I was just wondering, since it is still Army Corps property, we still have to go through the Corps for all of that. I assumed regardless of whether it was their property or not, if it's going to change the waterway at all, I wouldn't think it would, moving things around.
It just would have to be,
but
everything would have, you just have to go through the
there's a lot of-
process.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm just
But I don't think that's, I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't pursue something of Smith Fork
Yeah,
just because of that.
I think it'd be great.
It's
I
just a
think,
few extra.
honestly, there's not really another space for something like that in any of our parks. Like, we don't really have any green space that has anything that needs a bridge like this, unless it were used for like,
Well, except.
like a fishing spot, like an Elby Lake or something. You could, like, use it as a-
I think we need to look at heritage too, especially if you could split that in two
Yeah.
and get
That's good.
twice out of it. And if you can't, then maybe it goes out, number one, would be Smith's Fork
Yeah.
versus
The nice thing about, if you could split it, is, like you said, you could fabricate the side and store the other half, and potentially, if you don't, if we don't have a place for it right now, if there's a place that we can store it so that we could utilize it in the future somewhere.
Sure.
Would it be possible as a secondary option to use it as a dock, like a fishing dock in Helvey Lake? Is it Helvey?
I suppose anything's
Helvey's the one next to
possible.
the water plant, right? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, anything's possible.
I just feel like having a dock out
I
there.
don't think it's long enough to span, but if you put them side by side, you might be able to span the south side.
No, I mean like, put the whole thing out there, so it's more of a dock than it is like along it. Does that make
Couple of
sense?
piers into the lake.
Yeah, just
one end
set
on
it in
that.
there and then have access onto it.
That's a nice
My
idea.
thought is if it was covered, it would be wheelchair accessible. That would be, I mean, even more what we were talking about, what we did with Heritage, of it just being more accessible to the community. Have even just a packed dirt trail or something that goes out to it, be able to get out, you'd actually be able to get out into that
Right.
little lake and fish that you wouldn't actually be able to before. And is it the Kiwanis Club?
Well, theoretically, you could just
River?
park along the dam and fish
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
That's pretty accessible.
And that might be worth pursuing though. I mean, the trail's gonna go along that south side, right there.
It's gonna, yeah, it is.
It will.
We might
that
consider
in
how
there.
much it would cost financially to do all the work to put it somewhere versus selling it and putting the money that we would
Agreed.
get from selling it
Into
something
something.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because I'm thinking like refabricating, cutting it in half, putting a side on both sides, that's a lot of metal.
And then,
It's already cut in
rolling
half.
work.
dirt work, and, you know,
Right.
hauling equipment.
It's already cut in
it
half.
might just
I think it's
be-
already-
It looks like it's cut in half.
I think it's
already.
cut
I didn't know that if it just broke there.
I mean, would it be worth it to sink a bunch of money in it by moving it and altering it and placing it versus selling it?
I do know, I mean, the mayor's talked about the fact when we get ready to move it, he can reach out to, like, it was the Army or one of them that do some of their practice maneuvers
Oh.
of coming out, once we know where we want it to go.
Yeah.
Of them moving.
Well,
Just as one of their exercises.
We're still talking though, to place it at a crane, which I doubt that they do that.
to your point
Well,
too,
they would do a helicopter.
they would do helicopter stuff.
That's
Yeah.
fun. That's my understanding. I'm all for doing the money smart option, but the small child in me is like, I want to see the helicopter place for it, so that sounds fun.
Well, I mean, to your point about that is creating a need for a bridge versus knowing that there's someplace where we do need a bridge. You know what I mean? And just-
Having a need versus.
Right.
Yeah, if we were like, gosh, I wish we had a bridge there, this would be perfect. But I do think, when we look at Smith Fork, I really do think, because just the only way to access that whole area is around the top of the spillway, and having that on the lower side would be a really neat feature.
A lot of it comes back to connections.
Sure.
And I mean, we've got a river running through the middle of town. I mean, obviously
Right.
connecting people and trails on both sides of that.
Well, and I can even tell you, like, I do photography, and one of the things that I've found with a lot of our kids is like, they leave town for things. So homecoming, prom,
Oh,
they
yeah.
do pictures, that kind of thing, they leave town to go do them. And if we had like a nice bridge spot,
Yeah.
like, that would be nice to keep our kids in town for maybe dinner later that night, because if you're staying in town for pictures, you can stay in town for dinner, and I mean, anything for, that's a small part of what it would be used for. Obviously, like, it would be a boon for the campground, it would be great for the biking community, the walking and running community, even the fishing community, like, it would be great for all of those things, but it's also, like, it's that extra piece too.
I think it'd be worth exploring that I think it'd be worth kind of looking into if we did want to consider selling it. Would it just be selling it for scrap? Would it be selling it to someone who wanted to utilize it? Because then they would have the transportation issues. I think that's a whole piece of it we should at least find out. What's it worth?
I think we should come back with, like, maybe scout out some options where it could go.
Where it
and
could
then
go.
Come up with a budget for each option and versus a budget for selling it. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and even like those
Feel
options
free.
of places it could go, what is the cost of putting it there?
Right.
Next to the cost of building a wood bridge?
Yeah.
For like a dirt bike trail or something like that. Because maybe that would be a lot less expensive than moving this
But it depends a lot on
piers and all that kind of stuff, so.
the distance you're spanning
Yeah.
and the weight limit you're going to need, which is going to be minimal for
Yeah.
what we're looking for a recreational
Yeah.
trail bridge.
Good.
So,
Is
Good
that
discussion.
information you
Yeah, that's very-
need?
yes.
Did we give you enough?
Yes, that's all there is to discuss.
but if there's a helicopter involved, I mean,
Jim's all I'll say.
Yeah, just for your notes, like, I like the idea of the Riverwalk and like having the connection from the housing, or the housing area over to Heritage Park. I love that that makes that more accessible.
That connects to the Main Street Trail.
Yeah, and so that's really, really awesome. And then Smith's Fork, and I still like the idea of the dock on Helvey Lake. I think it would be great for
Dude,
anyone.
that'd be
who
great
needs
Eagle
that
Scout project,
accessibility.
I think.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that for our elderly community, just to make it more, like, to have it right there next to the road, where you can just get out there and actually
Very
fish a
accessible.
little further, it'd be great.
How old is this bridge?
I'm not sure.
So,
It's been used twice, right? This is the second location that it's been in, it's the one they just took it out of. That was my understanding.
well, another thing to consider is how structurally sound it is.
Right, that'll all have to
We
be
were
done.
able to sell it and then use that money to build a new, cheaper bridge that would be more
Right.
structurally sound than reusing this. That might be an option too.
Yeah.
I think given again the weight limits though,
Yeah.
I doubt we would find it wouldn't be sound enough.
Well, but
Because they took it down to
if
one
it's in
lane.
half, like, I wonder if that changes
They take
its,
it down to one lane
its integrity some.
for a while
Yeah.
because of,
Yeah, that's something the engineers would figure out.
Yeah. Makes me want to go in there and look at it closer now.
All right,
Okay.
good.
Anything, any other discussion on this part?
It's a lot.
You got enough?
Got a lot. Good. Yep,
Who is presenting on number 7?
I will. I'd be happy to.
Go for it. Are you doing everything tonight?
We'll see. We'll get to new business next. At the Board of Aldermen work session on November 5th at 5:30, a Parks and Recreation sales tax ballot question will be discussed. That sales tax could provide dedicated funding for operations and maintenance, land acquisition, planning, including a Parks and Recreation master plan as well as park development. So that's something that as we get, if we'll pull information together out, we will definitely send that packet out to you guys so you can be aware that's going on. That may be a meeting you want to attend. That'll be at 5:30 on November 5th. Okay, we're pulling together some information and ballot language from other communities and definitely wanted you guys to be in the loop on that. So there's really not a lot to discuss on that other than,
I think, what is it, a half-cent sales tax generates
400,000.
400,000.
quarter cent would be 200,000. So we'll make sure to get that packet distributed to you, this board as well as the Board of Aldermen. So you'll get it twice, sorry. But yeah, then you guys will have all the information, you can study up, and if you have any questions on that, we'd be happy to answer those for you before that meeting. We're continuing to meet on that, so that by no means is ready to go, but it will be for that meeting on the 5th. Okay?
That's a work session?
It's a work session,
So it's
so
not a
it's-
public meeting or not a, or?
No, it is, it's a public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ahead
There'll be
of,
comments.
I think, I'm
Yeah.
pretty good about taking public comment. If you're there and you want to come speak about it, you can.
I just
Yeah,
didn't know.
you as citizens have a lot more leeway than we do as staff. So, and that is something where you guys would come in. Obviously, you'd be that leadership's going to have to come, especially from this committee, on
Sure.
getting the word out to advocate for something like that.
Cool. Any other discussion on that? Okay, new business? Anybody? I would like, it doesn't have to necessarily go on new business, I'm not sure how this would work. I would like to know what the plan is. I know we're like a little ways down the road because we don't actually have that parking lot yet. What is gonna happen to that playground equipment? I would just like to know like what the plan is for it, the eventual. And that doesn't have to necessarily come up in another meeting. It can just come to me in an email. I would love to know. I know that there are, my understanding is that some of the state school systems who cater to the severely mentally and physically disabled children, a lot of them lease and rent spaces, and so they don't always have the funds to put in playground equipment. But they usually have some kids that are absolutely able to use that kind of equipment and would love to have it. So I didn't know if it was going anywhere already, if it was going to be donated, if it was going to be sold. but I'm sure that we could find a place to, if we're not looking to sell it for liability purposes, I'm sure we could find a place to pass it along to. And it would be a big blessing for them. But
And you'd hate to see it just destroyed.
I just would hate to see it like, if it's not gonna be destroyed. Yeah, even if parts of it were, like, there's the one piece that you can like walk up into and all the step spins, and my kid loves going in there and just spinning stuff, he can't read it or anything, so, but I'm like, even that right there, like, that would be, just little pieces of that kind of thing would be cool, so. Anything else from anybody? Sure. All right, I'm making a motion to adjourn. I never know.
No meeting next month because of Thanksgiving, unless
Yes.
there's a trail public input.
Yeah.
We will be in communication with you on that.
And that
And
would,
then same with December, we've canceled that one too. So if something comes up and we need to meet, we can.
would the meeting be on the 21st if we were to have it?
What?
That public comment meeting?
I have no idea when that meeting's going to be.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't necessarily have to be at one of our meetings?
It's not going to be, yeah, because we don't have one scheduled until
Okay.
January.
Okay.
So it'll be a meeting that,
Would we need to maybe call a special meeting if we move forward with that Parks and Rec sales tax?
could, yes, definitely.
Okay. All right, I
we just
will
have to
be
pick a different
gone
day.
Yeah.
the week of Thanksgiving, so I would hope we wouldn't have it then, like the week of Thanksgiving, surely not. But, yeah.
Would not be well attended.
No, before then, after then, great. The week of Thanksgiving, probably not a good idea, so.
Yeah, you guys will definitely be in the loop on that if you're at that November 5th meeting. So you'll know everything the board of Aldermen knows.
Do we know, I know that there was discussion at one point about a wildflower, like, actual flowers at Wildflower. What is happening with that? Who's doing that? Is it Parks and Rec that's actually doing that?
My understanding
or-
is the 4-H.
4-H is doing it?
Right, they're
Okay.
handling a lot of the garden type stuff up there, yeah. Yep. Motion to adjourn?
Second from anybody?
I'll second.
Well, I can't make it. I was asking.
I thought you,
Can I make it?
Yeah,
I never know how to share, like, can I make the
Someone-
motion? I never do, I always wait for everyone.
Let's do it forever.
I second